Good morning, everyone. My name is LaPrel Titsoni. I am one of the drinking water inspectors for the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality. And as Vivian said, I am doing this presentation on the top top 10 drinking water sanitary survey violations. And to get a more recent, up-to-date count on that, this is specifically violations from whoops, I didn't update this from our last time, but it's dating back to 5 years ago. So just a little bit of background on me. I recently started working with the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality in April 2020. I had my bachelor's degree earned from Arizona State University, with concentrations focusing on environmental geography and geological sciences. And since graduation, I've worked with various entities ranging from the Navajo Nation Environmental Protection Agency, the Bureau of Land Management, Farmington, New Mexico, and the Lower Elwha Natural Resource Department out in Washington State. So again, we're going to be reviewing the top violations found during inspections from 2016 to 2021. Jennifer Crow and Steve Vogel recently gone through the 8 elements of sanitary surveys, and I'll just go ahead and review those once again. Sanitary surveys must include the following 8 essential elements that must be reviewed during the on-site inspections. These include the water source, water treatment, distribution system, finished water, storage tanks, pumps, pumping facilities and controls, monitoring, reporting, and data verification, water system management and operations, operator compliance with state requirements. Since October 2016, ADQ inspectors have issued 2,053 violations during on-site inspections. Just a little bit of logistics, that's estimating about 410 violations per year. And these violations are informal and formal violations. So these can be notice of violations, notice of opportunity to correct, and or recommendations. Specifically, looking further into this, the top 10 violations issued, here's a little breakdown of the overall violations. The number 1 violation turned out to be no sample plans to review on site. There was 88 violations for that. No number 16 mesh screen on overflow pipe of the storage tanks. Number 3 was vegetation around storage tank base. Number 4 was the cracked well slab. Number 5 was improper drainage around storage tank. There was a tie for number 6. The first one was the well does not have a well vent, and the other one was no gasket on the storage tank lid. Violation number 7, top violation number 7 was the no sample tap at the well. Number 8 was no overflow pipe on the storage tank. Number 9 was no hatch seal on the storage tank. This is usually pertains to the gasket on the storage tanks. Number 10 was the well vent was not properly screened or not screened at all. Just from looking at this list, and I think Jennifer touched on this in her presentation, a lot of these violations were pertaining to storage tanks, finished water storage tanks on water systems. So we're going to kind of focus on that a little more today as we break down the different violations relating to the storage tanks. The others were like operation and maintenance. items and a few admin or monitoring and reporting violations as well. So starting off, we have the breakdown of the storage tanks. In total, there were 698 violations. And here are just a few photos. Let me turn on my laser pen really quickly. Okay, so in this slide, we have a couple photos of examples of a few violations that were recorded, and photos were taken to show how and why they were out of compliance. So here we have a storage tank that has some weeds growing around the base of the tank. As Steve Vogel said, you don't want vegetation growing around your storage tank base or the foundation areas. This gives critters and potential unstable ground around your storage tank. Here we have the gasket that does not have a lock on there, and it's hard to see. I don't even know if you can see it at all, but you can't tell if there's a gasket or a seal on the storage tank lid. Here we don't really, this could be an open, I don't know, it's facing upwards, and I probably can guess that it's not sealed or it doesn't have the proper screen on there, and it should be facing down if that's the overflow. But we'll get into more in that. We'll get more into that later. Here we have an overflow that doesn't look like it's properly screened. I know the pictures are kind of dark on that one. Another vegetation tree branch growing at the base of a storage tank, and the grass growing around the foundation as well. And here it's obvious that you can see that there's no stability under the storage tank on the right. It looks like it's about to pretty much fall over, which can jeopardize providing water to the water system customers at the end of the line. So this is a huge example of how to protect the foundation or the stabilization of all storage tanks. Another photo of vegetation overgrowth around the storage tank base. And here there's this photo to the bottom right are holes in the storage tank. You can see the streaks on the side that pretty much show that the storage tank has holes on the sides. Once again, here's an example of a before and after photo around the storage tank base. This system had vegetation overgrowing, and being that a lot of mobile home RV sites are seasonal, and a lot of snowbirds come during the winter. During that summer, you still have to do maintenance on that facility. So it's important that during the summers, we get a lot of monsoon and rain weather for, I think, July and August for the most part. So there's going to be weed growth. So you want to plan ahead and know that you're going to be receiving rain, which would then cause for more rapid vegetation growth around your storage tank. So just keep that in mind when you're preparing to reopen your RV or your RV trailer park for the winter seasons. And here we have a before and after photo of a gasket on the hatch. This particular water system was using a hose. They pretty much sliced down the middle and put the hose around the hatch lid. And I was looking into this, and it just so happens that if they did use a hose, the only hoses that would be acceptable if you found one were NSF approved hoses. And I believe the ACES hardware or Home Depot, they have the RV NSF approved water hoses. So I guess that's an option for you to use on your hatch, storage tank hatch gaskets. Here, it was just an issue because it's deteriorating. We can't tell if it's NSF approved or not. It just looks like a pretty much regular garden hose. There's an open space here, which still leaves room for little critters to crawl under the lip of the lid and still get into the water area. So here they ended up replacing it with the NSF approved gasket that they had ordered from. They provided the documentation that this gasket was NSF approved. So they ended up replacing they took off the hose here and they put the gasket on the lid on this for the correction. The next item is storage tank overflows. Overflows, according to engineering bulletin 10, the overflow should be extending down at least 12 to 24 inches above the surface of the ground, and it should discharge freely. Here, I know this quality isn't the greatest, but here is the fill line to the storage tank from the well, and here is where they had their overflow. They were also using this as a air vent, which is fine for an air vent if it's properly screened. However, they were also saying that this was their overflow, which does not comply with the engineer bulletin 10 specifications. So what they ended up doing, this was they had two other storage tanks on each side. So what they ended up doing was for all three tanks, they extended the overflow down to about 12 to 24 inches. They have their little splash pad here, but I would recommend a little more splash pad material, as the water can flow directly over that, or pretty much misses where the excess water can freely flow out. But yeah, so they ended up extending the overflows. They have this properly screened for each of their three storage tanks. Their foundation is pretty well maintained. You can see their storage tank ring foundation. That's not covered with sediments. No critters, tiny critters can get up in there. There's gravel inside the storage tank foundation. There's no openings under here. It's properly filled. So this is the overall good example of how you would kind of want your storage tanks to look around the bottom foundation area. Another example of an overflow that was cited and needed to be corrected was this storage tank. Although it's screened, it's not properly screened with the number 16 mesh material. They pretty much installed the shower drainage down for their screen. Critters, ants, bugs can still get in there. I'm sure bees can still get in there. So that was an issue. They have vegetation starting to grow. The overflow doesn't stop at the 12 to 24 inches. It's pretty much almost about to get buried again here. So a few items to issue, a few issues to note for this particular storage tank. They also didn't have an air vent on their tank. So how they corrected that was they pretty much installed a PVC pipe that attaches with their overflow, and it's kind of hard to see it cut off at the very top, but this is what they installed up here. And here you can see that it's properly screened. The vent is turned down, and they still have the option for their water overflow to go down to extend down towards the 12 to 24 inches up at the base. Here's the extended photo. You can see the overflow stops over at near 12 to 24 inches. They secured their hatch with the latch and a lock, which is also required for storage tanks as a security measure. And they removed the vegetation growth around the base. Next, we have the source water violations. We had 581 violations. Steve Vogel shared a few of these photos, so these are pretty much great examples, so that's why I'm using some of them again in this presentation. Here, the slab is broken off. Slabs should be at least 3 feet away from the well casings and should be slanted away, no cracks, no slabs, but obvious crack and obvious break of the slab here. For this area, we have a well that doesn't look like it has a raw water sample tap. The seal or between the casing, I don't know what the shape of that criteria was. In here on the photo to the top right, we have the opening on the casing again. There's a cable running down it, another which leaves open for another large opening here. Bottom right, the well area is not protected. There's a road right next to the well, so someone not paying attention can swerve and bump into the well and causing a lot of problems for your source in this area. This middle photo has a well casing that's pretty low. If there's ever flooding that should happen, your source is has potential for contamination. This should be at least 6 to 12 inches above the ground as well. And again, here for this particular photo on the bottom right, the slab is does not conform to 3 feet away from the well casing, and there's a large crack down at the bottom. Some before and afters. We have a well that was eventually found covered by all of these vegetation, overgrowth. Operators or water systems should have easy access to their water systems. I can see this could have potential for coliform presence due to the vegetation growth. Just keep well areas maintained. It's pretty much going to cause less problems for you and your operator, your system, if they ever need to maintain it at any point. While they also uncovered it, there was some cracks noticed, so they went and sealed that up around the casing and around the well. Otherwise, they would have never known due to the vegetation overgrowth. Here again is a closer photo of how their well looked under all the vegetation. There's some debris and sediment around the casing, and they cleared that up and they sealed the cracks. For this system, they had a vent, but it was not screened, so they went ahead and got a screen on their turn down vent. Here's just, before they installed it, here's a photo that they sent of the turn down vent properly screened with the number 16 non-corrodable mesh screen. And here is another example of a system who was using a vent that was a rubber hose, a rubber, I don't know if you guys can see, but they have the vent connected to the well casing here. They taped it off with tape around some pipes on the well. And then up on the other side, here is their version of the turn down vent. Although it's an A for ingenuity and innovation, ADQ can't see this as a system that has compliance with their well vent. As you can see, there's already cracks in the hose here, so that poses potential for contamination. Essentially, the system installed the PVC pipe here for the well vent. It's turned down, properly screened to about 2 feet above the well slab. They also sealed some of their cracks, so this ended up being a great before and after in terms of the vent situation. Monitoring and reporting, there were 174 violations. These violations included no sample plans to review on site, and these were sample plans that could be the MSSP, the lead and copper, the disinfection byproduct sampling plans. Jane went over that this morning, so those are the sampling plans that this is referring to. Public water systems did not turn in monitoring reports. The system failed to post public notices. And yes, during inspections, we do go over and ensure that the systems don't have any open violations in terms of public notices, the CCR, the consumer confidence reports, even as far as the certificate of distribution of mailing the CCRs out to customers, failing to monitor for residual disinfection levels or the myrtles, and again, the CCR certificate of distribution or mailing waivers not received. ADQ does, inspectors do work with the compliance assistant coordinators to work with systems in turning these in. So these items are usually found during our file reviews, and we try to bring them up during our consultation, confirmation phone calls and emails with the system. So we don't want to cite systems for not having correct monitoring and reporting, but we do our best to try and work with you to get these violations taken care of before we head out there for the sanitary survey. Here's a photo of the microbiological site sampling plan that ADQ has for customers. I believe Steve Vogel showed a couple of examples for microbiological site sampling plans. These templates are available on the ADQ website. Here we have the lead and copper site sampling plan template. And again, this form, I just want to emphasize that these sampling plans should be created by the system with the same criteria identified in the form LCRC, and it is required to be submitted to ADQ every monitoring period that the lead and copper sampling plan is being conducted. So each time you guys take your lead and copper samples, just because a change in sampling locations could occur, a change in routine could occur, a system who samples 5 samples could increase to 10 sample sites. So due to that, ADQ CACs would appreciate it if you guys turn in each of these sampling plans with your sampling results. Pretty simple to fill out. We have the basic information up at the top, the number of samples required that your system is required to pull. And when you get your results, you'll have, usually they have the 90th percentile for lead and copper on the results that from whichever lab you guys send in your samples to. The bottom here is not required unless the system is required to take water quality parameter samples. So some systems won't be required to fill out the bottom of that first page of the sampling plan. The sampling plan also includes a breakdown of each sampling location. So the top three lines go over the location, the type of structure, and the criteria or plumbing. Jane did a really good job of going into what counts as a good tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 sampling locations. So you can refer to her presentation on what constitutes for a good sampling location. Let's see. So if the system is changing sites, you put the original old site information up at the top three areas, and then here in the next three areas, you would put the new site information, how far the new site is from the old site. So it could be like 2 service connections. It could be in terms of yards, feet, lots, however let's see. So there's a new site must meet the same criteria as the original site when a replacement site is necessary to meet the LCR sampling requirements. And then explain why you're changing the sites. It could be someone moved out. There's been, for that sampling period, a different location with more meeting the specifications for sampling location was found. It could be multiple reasons. So this documents why systems change locations for their sampling sites. And then you would sign and print your name and date it when you're submitting it. ADQ inspectors always look for this template. So once your inspection is about to happen, have this on handy to present to us when we get on site or during the email consultations. Operation and maintenance violations, there were 156 violations. No emergency operations plan, sampling at incorrect locations. The public water system has maximum contaminant level violations at the time of the inspection. No ADWR well number posted. MSSP needed to be updated, or there was leaks found on the system. Emergency operations plans are required for all community water systems. So in our inspection reports, we have a specific section for all of these items. There's a yes, no check mark for each of these, even the staff training and emergency response procedures. So we do look, once those are presented, we look for each of these required items. And if a section is blank, we reach out and say, we need further explanation, we need further details for whatever site is missing. The critical spare parts inventory gets missed a lot. Identification of the critical component that shall remain in service or be returned to service also gets overlooked a lot. So just keep in mind, all of these sections are what ADEQ inspectors look at when we are looking over the emergency operations plan. And again, we have a template on our ADEQ site. So a free template is provided for you guys, and it has all of these sections already in there. You just have to plug in the details from your water system. System security, we have secure system components with 6-foot fence and lock, install locks on all gates and doors, secure wellhead, and missing security enclosures. Here there was a well that was not protected. There's trailers that are parked here and on this side of the well, so anybody could have access to messing with this wellhead. So as a security measure, although they don't have the 6-foot fence, they have the well secured away with this, and they have a lock on the lid. So pretty good security measure, and it protects the well from traffic and customers as well. And here to the right, we have a storage tank that didn't have a fence enclosure. Their ladder was laid right next to the storage tank, so anybody at any time can pull the ladder, get the ladder up on the the side and climb, for whatever reason, climb up at the top and mess with whatever. So the system ended up putting some fences up, and they have barbed wire for extra security. They put the fence around even some of their water lines as well. So pretty good before and after there. Here we have a fence that has an opening. It looks like it started to, someone cut it, or I don't know. It just, there's an opening that anyone can get to here. No lock on the fence here. So they just, anyone can go in and out of this area. Distribution system violations, there was 132. These included no backflow prevention testing records, no backflow prevention device at the system, no install and entry point to distribution system sample tap. System did not maintain a pressure of 20 psi at all times. System did not have an air relief valve vent, and no pressure gauge. Jennifer also went through this with the entry point to the distribution, but here's a different photo that depicts where the EPDS should be located. On the finished water line, you can see that it's after the storage tank, and it's before it enters the finished water, it's on the finished water line, so it's right before it enters all of these homes down at the further down on the water line. Should be after the well, disinfection, treatment, blending, and storage facilities, whichever is the last in process flow. Again, prior to the first service connection. So other additional deficiencies, there were 92. Complete the ATC AOC process for system updates. The EOP needed to be updated. Sanitary, which by the way, these need to be updated at least every year, just for your information, especially if you're a water system that is seasonal or changing ownership, just to keep that in mind. Sanitary defect for the RTCR rule, no second booster pump or pumps were not on a solid foundation. Treatment and disinfection violations, there were 44. These included non-NSF approved additives used, no label on the disinfection compound container, gas chlorination cylinder is not chained to the wall, no performance indicator device on the POU device. Here's some examples of non-NSF approved chlorine use. It's bleach that looks like they bought from like maybe the dollar store. You don't want to use this type of bleach. It should always have that NSF label on them, and proper storage as well. So this one was literally right next to the well slab, to the side. It was just there in the grass. So again, we're looking for the NSF approved labeling. Here we have it on this container there. We have it on this box here, and there's proper storage and it's locked away properly here. Operator certification violations, there were 36. System to obtain a certified operator, operator not certified at the correct grade, no written instructions left by the systems operator. That's when we have a system with a remote operator, I'm assuming. No written instructions left by the operator, and again, probably the remote operator. Here are some resources for owners and operators. A couple of these sites have been used, and ADQ has this on our approved vendor, NSF approved vendors list. So if you need gaskets, NSF approved gaskets or hoses or screens, these are good sites to look through or reach out to order some for your system, or if you're an operator for whatever sites, maybe have 10 systems that you're an operator for and they all need screens. So these would be some good resources for you to look into. A lot of what I had in my presentation came from Engineer Bulletin 10, the guidelines for construction of water systems. So if you have questions about anything with the well, the storage tank, treatment. A lot of it can be found in the Engineer Team Bulletin 10 and Engineer Bulletin 8. For our pre-inspection checklist, I know Jennifer and Steve also extensively went into this, but I want to emphasize that we do give water systems a heads up in terms of what we're going to be looking for, what we're going to request. So I want to just, again, emphasize that this will help you immensely when it comes to the sanitary survey. So please, when we send you this, the email, and this is attached, I would encourage the operator and or the system to look into this and pretty much get a heads up on what we'll be looking for during the inspection, so you won't get. So we're hoping for 0 violations during the time of the sanitary survey. I know I wrapped that up kind of quickly, so I don't know if there are any questions from any of the guests, but that concludes my presentation.
Thanks for that presentation. So I'm going to switch screens, and I'm going to hang on for just a little bit, just in case anyone has any questions for Laprel. So someone asked, several resources from these slides would be really helpful for the future. Can we get the slides emailed to us? So the slides will be posted on our ADEQ website by the end of this week. Please, you can then download all the presentations on that website. And Laprel, this question is for you. Please remind me where the pre-inspection checklist is on your website.
There's a section on the ADEQ website that's designated for forms from ADEQ. You can look, I'll have to double check, and if I can get his email, I can send the link just to double check, but there is a section in the ADEQ website for forms from ADEQ. Otherwise, there's a search button in the ADEQ, or the search engine button in the ADEQ. If we, our process for inspections is always to send a checklist. So that's another way you'll be getting checklists. Yeah, so I believe there's a sanitary survey section in our website as well that you can look for the pre-inspection checklist forms.
The next question is there any way to find out when our next sanitary survey would be?
So sanitary surveys, on our end, we get the lists probably every, like, the month before the quarter starts. So a lot of the times as inspectors, we don't know which systems will come up until a month before the quarter starts, and then we'll start reaching out to systems. But if you can, every 3 to 5 years is when you should expect a sanitary survey or ADEQ to reach out to you for a sanitary survey.
And the last question is, I am not seeing some of the forms that were shown in the form section. For example, I am not seeing the lead sample 1 on the website. So definitely our website will be updated with all the proper forms. Laprel, do you have anything to add?
I'm pretty sure it is on there, but again, I think Vivian will double check if all the forms presented in the presentations are in there. So I apologize if it's kind of hard to find the forms. We'll definitely look into that.
All right, well, thank you for that presentation, and thank you all for joining us today. The last reminder is to download that PDH tracking form. We will not be emailing it out, so this is your last chance to download it so you guys can upload it into the portal. If you guys can see on the screen, my email and my phone number are there, so feel free to contact me if you guys have any questions or concerns. Again, thank you to the presenters and the attendees for joining us today. Have a great day.